Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Chaffee here, FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey, and our Joe Rayo will be arriving shortly, FiOS 1 News Hudson Valley. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I did a little bit of audio adjusting, so if someone can let me know that you could hear me right now, it would be most helpful. We are going to be talking about a lot of things tonight with regards to the weather going forward. We've got a lot of severe weather going on over parts of the Midwest and the Ohio, Tennessee Valley. That weather front that's responsible with the storm system heading to the lakes, that is going to be impacting our weather here on Wednesday. We're going to get out of this low cloud drizzle and fog soup and bring those temperatures up. And then down we go again as we've got weather systems to deal with for Friday, Saturday, and early next week. Christina Wyckoff, thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. That's good. I've been just trying to do a little bit of audio adjusting and played around with some of the mics, and I also clean the camera lens so that we actually look alive. So Joe will be in here momentarily. Let's start off. The severe weather tonight is pretty extensive. The severe weather season so far has been relatively quiet. There have been a few severe weather episodes, but tonight has really gotten pretty active here. I'm just going to show you from the Storm Prediction Center as Mr. Rayo has now walked in. He has to make his entrance. We've got in the red areas you see here on the map, this is where we have tornado watches up. This is all part of what was a moderate risk of severe weather. It looks like the Storm Prediction Center did a little bit of updating tonight, Joe, but it's got a pretty extensive area of enhanced risk and slight risk and marginal risk going up into western Pennsylvania and southwestern New York, and this is going to be shifting eastward for tomorrow.
I know that they were talking about this morning maybe upgrading the situation along the eastern or the Atlantic seaboard for tomorrow to possibly a slight risk. They said the main drawback was not much in the way of CAPE, or in other words, they were concerned about cloud cover, although they did.
They actually did late this afternoon. Keep going.
So that they were concerned about the cloud cover, keeping the temperatures down perhaps, but of course, in a situation like what we have tomorrow, Joe, you know as well as I that if we break out into any amount of sunshine tomorrow, we're going to be off to the races by noontime or 1, 2 o'clock as that sharp cold front comes barreling across the tri-state area. It looks like, basically, from what the models have been suggesting, that this is going to be one of those skinny, narrow, albeit intense lines of showers and embedded thunderstorms that we may be seeing. So if we do get any sunshine, all of a sudden it's going to get rather nasty for maybe an hour or so, or hour or two, around, let's say, 1, 2, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And that combined with the gusty winds, here we go again with the winds. Wind advisory posted for much of the tri-state area. 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts possible.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
That could very well, you're excused, that could very well lead to downing of tree limbs and maybe some power lines, yada, yada, yada. Here we go again.
Here's the radar right now as of 9:18 Eastern Time. Fairly extensive line that runs from southeastern Michigan right through Indiana from northwest to southeast, and it looks like there's also a fairly strong line of storms running through central Kentucky. There were a few reports of tornadoes late this afternoon into tonight, and then there's some more, it looks like possible severe thunderstorms back in western Kentucky, western Tennessee, northwestern Mississippi, and through north central Louisiana, all pushing to the east. Very busy night in the land of severe weather, which is, I was saying a little earlier right before you walked in spite of all the storminess we've had in the east because of the way the upper pattern has been, severe weather the month of March hasn't been all that extensive throughout the Midwest and in areas where you would normally expect it this time of year.
We've seen over the last couple of years that it has not been all that active until all of a sudden that day or week or so in May, let's say, when all of a sudden all blankety blank breaks loose, and then we get into some real problems. But right now, this looks like a rather interesting scenario coming up the next 72 hours with possible thunderstorms tomorrow with strong gusty winds, and then we look ahead to Friday and the weekend, and back we go to a possibly late winter type weather pattern.
Yeah, I still don't know quite what to make of that. Let me just real quick. We have wind advisories up for tomorrow into tomorrow night across most of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, down to Delaware, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, Northern Virginia, on up through Long Island, New York City, Hudson Valley, Southern New England, and actually most of New England. High wind warnings up in upstate New York. You can see what's going on tonight with the land of severe weather. The tornado watches that are up from Arkansas northeastward through most of Kentucky, southern Indiana to southeastern Ohio. You know what? Let me just update this real fast, Joe. I may just want to freshen this up a little bit. And yeah, okay, just to make
you lose your breath.
Yeah, sometimes it gets very stuffy in this room. Can you crack that door open just a little?
Yeah.
Maybe let a little fresh air in here.
I'll try to leave it open somehow.
Could put a box open, maybe that.
Yeah, why not?
We're in our studio. Sometimes I don't know whether the vent is opened or not, but I tend to be a little sensitive to this sort of stuff. But we also have winter storm warnings up across Wisconsin, back through southern Minnesota, on up through northern Michigan. Advisories surrounding that. Advisories and a winter storm warning up in Maine, but you know what? That's pretty much starts. They have winter storm warnings up for 4 months up there, and not too much action yet in the west. But they're getting ready for a storm that's coming into the west coast. That's going to be important to our weather down the road. So I'll start to bring the models up. Let's start with Friday. What may or may not happen late Thursday night into Friday morning. This looks like a minor event for Friday. I'm not overly impressed by it. I think it's just along the lines of the fact that we've had so much to deal with since the beginning of March that even the slightest couple of hours of a little bit of wintry precip is getting on my nerves.
Well, it looks like initially it'll be cold enough for some frozen precipitation, some wet snow, and then as we progress through the morning into the afternoon, hopefully that'll change over to just plain old rain, a chilly rain albeit, but still, and it's coming during the daytime, so unless it has any real intensity to it,
and I don't think it will.
It doesn't look like one of those intense power pack systems like we had Sunday night and early Monday. The fact that it's coming during the daytime, that should help to preclude any major stickage.
Yes.
Is that a word? Stickage?
I guess so.
Or sticking of the snow.
All right, so here's the NAB model for tomorrow with these thunderstorms. It looks like it fires them up way too late out to the east. If this is right, then we won't see very much out of this. But there are some other models that say otherwise. Why don't we try the HRRR, because that takes us. This is actually out till mid-morning tomorrow, and you can begin to see. You see the beginnings of what might be a line of storms at 11 o'clock in the morning in eastern Pennsylvania. The RGEM's pretty impressive with what it shows. At least it was earlier. Let me double check here.
Well, there you go.
And it also a little bit too late. They're developing as they're going by. Over a little patch there up in northeastern New Jersey and over Long Island, which is kind of surprising to me. And then you've got this bigger area that forms just along the Virginia coast. Seems like the timing might be a bit off tomorrow, but the front coming through earlier in the day.
Regardless of whether we get any showery rain or brief burst of thunder and lightning with the frontal passage, one thing that will be marked quite noticeably will be the gusty and shifting winds that will be taking place with the frontal passage. Let's say between noon and 3 o'clock, the winds initially around noontime, as that wind advisory goes into effect, will be coming out of a southwesterly direction, and then a very rapid turn into the west and then northwest during the afternoon. And by later in the afternoon, the winds will be probably gusting, we'll have sustained winds of 10 to 20 miles per hour, and again, some occasional gusts up to 40 or 50. Now, I do disagree with the Weather Service. They're the ones who have put out the advisory, and they're the ones who are saying 50 mile per hour wind gusts or higher. I think, frankly, the winds are going to be more along the lines of 35, 40, which would be just below wind advisory criteria.
Right.
So we'll see how this all pans out. But again, regardless of whether or not we get any significant weather with the actual front in terms of precipitation, you will certainly notice the gusty and shifting of the winds again during the midday and early afternoon tomorrow as that front comes ripping across the tri-state area.
Sometimes with these warm fronts, the winds don't mix all the way down to the very bottom of the atmosphere. This is I just put up the 10-meter wind forecast. Let me just back it away. During tomorrow morning, I mean, it does get a bit on the windy side there. These are sustained winds of 20 to 35 along the coast. You see all the yellows touching Long Island and coastal New Jersey. Not so much in the inland spots. The winds sustained, although it's up to sustained winds are up to 20 miles an hour. So I agree with you. I think we'll probably see some gusts into the low 40s, but I don't think they should be too excessive.
No, I did not. Yesterday I said 40. Today I actually knocked the winds down a bit. On my early weathercast, I actually said gusts to over 35, and I was a little surprised when then the Weather Service came out with their advisory for up to 50. I said, 50? Really? Well, we'll see who's going to be right about this tomorrow. I'm talking now about the Hudson Valley. I'm not talking about Long Island or coastal areas.
Those areas will probably see some stronger gusts. Yeah, I would say there would be at least into the 40s. All right, so let's go forward with the NAM. We know that Thursday's not a problem, other than the fact it's going to be another miserably cold day with temperatures probably not out of the 40s, even though we'll have a fair amount of sunshine.
Today was amazing because today normal high should be 55 to 60, and there were many spots in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, the 30s.
40. Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
Now here's Friday morning. So you've got this weak, fast-moving low that's dropping eastward across the lower lakes. There's an area of snow with this that gets into maybe northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and into Connecticut. It looks like rain on the coast. But it's fast, Joe. That doesn't look like a big deal.
It's not. But you know what? I think about that comment that you sometimes make about in some winters you
finds a way.
You can't get a snowflake. You can't buy a snowflake. And then there are other winters where a snowflake will come at the drop of a hat. And this is one of those scenarios where you would not think that you'd get much of anything. And here we are now talking about at least the possibility initially of a little bit of snow on Friday morning.
This system does set the table, though, for the one for Saturday.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, this thing for Saturday reminds me of what happened Sunday night and Monday. We've got this very fast flow in the upper atmosphere, very strong west to east jet
zone.
Yeah, but there's embedded disturbances in there that are just rocketing right along, and this is not one of those situations where you've got this sort of sharp V-shaped trough in the upper atmosphere. But there's enough of a kink in there that as it moves along to the northeast, that you wind up with something like what happened Sunday night into Monday morning.
Right.
The only thing, Joe, this time around, and I'm going to have to switch to the GFS now because this way we can see what is going on during the day Saturday, because the NAM is still not in range. Although I will tell you that the NAM late this afternoon was already further north than where the GFS is, so that's something to think about. But the couple of differences this time around. The most important one to me is the fact that this is going to be during the day on Saturday, it seems, and that by a little bit after Saturday evening, 8 o'clock, it's done. So if we get the bulk of the precip during the day on Saturday, as we said yesterday, unless it's snowing really, really hard, it's going to be hard for this to accumulate, I would think.
Right. And again, that sun angle, I tell you what, we had the snow at night, which is why it was able to accumulate more readily. But once the sun came up on Monday, I really didn't have to do much in the way of shoveling. I had 5.5 inches, more than 5.5 inches of snow on my property, and yet when I came home last night, I said, what happened to all the snow? That high sun angle really did a job, at least in the standpoint of melting everything off. So the fact that this is coming on Saturday during the day, and the fact that we have that high sun angle, should help to keep the snow level or snow accumulations down.
And this is different than Sunday night into Monday because of the timing that this is coming during the daytime. So,
and it does not look like it's going to have that intensity that this one had. Well, although if this keeps moving north.
Well, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
This is what happened late last week with models that came back with something that was supposed to go south, and as we went through the weekend, it was further north, I mean, if we get into what the GFS is showing, this really dark blue area of what would probably be moderate to heavy snow, if that winds up being further north and we get into that, then we're going to have to reevaluate, in terms of accumulation. But right now, the model has been, it went where it had it, then it lost it, then it brought it back late yesterday afternoon, and now it's been kind of edging it a little bit further north with every run.
Hasn't the models been doing this all winter long? You see something 4 or 5 days out. Wow, look at that. Then it takes it away, and then literally within 24 to 36 hours, oh, guess what? We've changed our mind. We're coming back again.
Yeah, and it's happening again. So we'll have to just wait till, you know what? Which really, honestly, we have to wait till it gets into the NAMS range, which will be, at this time tomorrow, we'll be out to Saturday night, so we'll be able to at least get the NAMS idea.
Who would have thought a few years ago that we're counting on the NAM?
Hey, you know what? It works if you know how to use it. It even works when it's not working.
The model, which I was going to start a petition 3 years ago, before that was it 2014? The storm that it was saying was like 32 inches of snow for New York, and
that was 16.
16. It's been that short a time. It seemed like 1,000 years ago. I mean, I say to myself, this is impossible. All the other models, all the reputable models, are only going 6 to 7 or 6 to 8. This one's going 32. What do we need that for? And what happened? We had 25 inches with that.
Well, it showed that it certainly showed you. Now, I want to jump to next week, because this looks like is going to be the third and hopefully the last one.
The early retirement for us.
Right. But major differences showing up in the European and the GFS. I mean, they both actually have the same, a similar idea. But the difference is the GFS, there's two distinct short waves here that just kind of stay separate on the GFS, which wants to bring in precip here later Monday afternoon into early Tuesday. The Europeans' view is different in that it actually kind of phases these two. It looks like it has that first lead shortwave is a little slower, and it winds up phasing with this. And, this has a potential for a rather interesting outcome for later Tuesday and Wednesday. This would happen a day later. I'm not sure which one model to lean on, although I will say, and I don't think you'll disagree with me with this, the European has just done such a horrible job, for lack of a better word, such a horrible job in handling the long range that I kind of just want to lean to the idea of the GFS having a more, say, a broken look there at in the upper air, rather than the Europeans' perhaps more dynamic look, because of the fact that the European just has not performed well.
It has not been a good year for the European. This has probably been the worst winter for the European since, I think, the winter of 2011-2012. I made the comment in that year that, no, it couldn't have been 2011-2012, because 2012 was Sandy, and it did fantastic with Sandy and a number of other storms. But it was, I think, the next year. I said last year the European was like Mariano Rivera coming out of the bullpen. It was almost a lock, whatever it said. But the following year, it was going from major storms, like every time a storm was coming its way, this is going to be a big one, at least in its own numerical way.
Right, and it wasn't.
And it wasn't. And I said, last year it was like Mariano Rivera. This year it's pitching like Scott Schoenweiss, which was a very bad relief pitcher for the Mets in 2013 or 25. And it's maybe not quite as bad this year, but certainly you have to question what the European says more than 3 days down the road.
Well, here's how the GFS handles the one for early next week. And it's got a primary low that goes into West Virginia. Secondary develops a high that's kind of wedging in some colder air. This is pretty interesting to me. We're just going to have to watch the model trends here. It's a waste of time in a sense, Joe, to just kind of look at it and as something definitive at this point, because we all know that this could wind up being colder, it could wind up being more intense, less intense. It's a problem after we resolve the issue for Saturday, if there's going to be one. So, just putting it out there. But looking at the long range, Joe, I got a sense that might be, we're at the point now where this pattern's got to break at some point.
Well, I was telling one of our directors just a few minutes ago, Ivan was asking about when I thought that this pattern was going to break down, and I said, quite frankly, to me, and maybe you agree, this to some amount, that I think the pattern is actually going to show a major change or a major breakdown from what we've been seeing around Friday the 13th.
Well, maybe. And you know something, Joe? All it really needs to do is just break to a point where it gets to seasonal.
Right.
And I think that's maybe where we're going for the second half of April.
Yeah.
Just get this really cold, snowy pattern out of here, and just let's get it to seasonal. I would be very happy.
So we may be lucky if that pans out Friday the 13th and beyond. I mean, after that, I think quite frankly, we'll be looking at, again, either, as what you just said, near seasonable, which I think a lot of people will accept at this point. Tomorrow, for example, will be near seasonable. People will dance in the streets tomorrow if it gets to 60 after the kind of weather we've had the last couple of days.
Russ Fergala of Russ Fergala Landscaping, and a friend of mine, you're talking about spring cleanups postponed for weeks. He's absolutely correct. He and a number of other landscapers that I speak to that are on my weather page and on your weather page too, have been really, really frustrated because they didn't really get to clean up in the fall,
right,
because of how fast the cold air came and how long it took the leaves to come down because of the warm autumn. And then now they can't get to do the spring cleanups because we keep getting these snow events, and when we're not getting snow events, we're getting rain.
I understand completely, because where I am, on the side of my house, I still have a bunch of leaves that fell during the fall, which I never was able to get to, because you just mentioned they fell very quickly, and all of a sudden we were enveloped in winter weather. And all over my lawn, all over my front lawn now, I have all variety of twigs and branches and whatever, and especially a few big branches that are strewn on, and I can't do a darn thing with these until after it starts warming up on a more persistent basis. So again, everything is. I usually try to get the lawn tractor, the tractor lawnmower out around the 12th or 15th of April. It ain't happening this year. I don't think so. There's I got to clean up from the 4 nor'easters and what may be happening, in the next week. It's crazy.
Jason Schaefer, I saw you ask the question about how warm tomorrow. Wouldn't be surprised if in New Jersey, if it breaks out into some sun during tomorrow morning, there are going to be some spots going above 70, which happened just a few days ago anyway, so I can't see what's going to stop it. If the wind is coming in, if it's a land southwest wind, it'll, unless there's, if you're in a spot like on Long Island where the wind's off the water, it's a different story. But in New Jersey, I'm thinking, there's a possibility that some spots in Central and South Jersey could go to 70.
The only ones who won't get a break probably out of this is people who live along the South Shore of Long Island.
We always, this time of year is just not a fun time of year.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just wrap it up real quick. Not a nice night tonight. Low clouds, drizzle, fog, just blah.
I hope the warm front is able to get through. I hope it's not going to be one of those cases where you wake up in the morning and it's still like 42 degrees. Because then the problem tomorrow is just lifting that warm front out, which probably would not happen until the cold front comes in and acts like a meteorological crowbar and literally pries the cold air out on its own.
And then tomorrow, figure early to mid-afternoon, the threat for some thunderstorms. And then we will have a dry, cold day on Thursday, and then let the games begin Thursday night, Friday morning, then again on Saturday into Saturday night, and then who knows after that. So I'll have the latest tonight coming up on Fios 1 News Long Island and Fios 1 News New Jersey coming up at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock.
And in the Hudson Valley, of course, Fios 1 News Lower Hudson Valley will be looking at the overall pattern for the next few days, and see how it all plans out for the end of the week and the weekend.
All right, Brian Fitzgerald, Jeff Bansett on in the morning to get you started on the morning commute,
and then Addison Green and Miss Brittany Borer, they'll be there in the midday, and then you and I will come strolling in and sit down and start laughing because that's about the same time the European comes out.
Right, and by that time too, all the severe weather will be done with, and it's everybody else's issue.
Yeah, we'll be coming home. We'll be commuting tomorrow with possible severe weather. That'll be fun.
All right, you didn't need to say that. I didn't realize that. All right, folks, have a great rest of your evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.